Hello and welcome to the Transformation Project, a podcast and community for women who are looking to transform into the best version of themselves no matter where they are at. A place where you can listen, learn, and laugh along with us as we dive deep into different topics to help you live a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled life. Remember, we are all learning here together, and therefore the content and opinions of the hosts and our guests should not be taken as medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Transformation Project. We are so excited tonight to be speaking to Mira Claudia. I met Mira online through her embodied movement practice, which I call for myself mindful movement. I was looking for something to get back into dance. I wanted to move my body and also find an alternative to meditation, which I wasn't very good at. And just as the universe works, stumbled across Mira, which has been incredible, and followed her and stalked her for a little while. And through all that, have realized that she does so much more than just guide people through dance. And so I'm really excited to have her here tonight to share with you. So welcome so much, Mira.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
So tell us a little more about your story, how you've come into doing what you're doing and what's brought you to that.
Yeah. So really, my presence on social media started out a little while ago, but really it just started out of a place of wanting to share a different way that I was working with becoming a single parent. So, the embodied movement practice is one of those things. But ultimately, I had a really life upside down moment at the end of my marriage. And this is 4 years ago now. And at that particular time, I was rediscovering who I was or discovering who I was. And through many turn of events and, lucky opportunities, I realized my strengths and my natural talents. And that was communicating, telling stories, influencing and creating connections with people. I'd always had this desire to work with women. I'd always found myself being that person that was, wanting to listen to stories and wanting to find ways for women to be their best, and whether that be through my friendship groups or I used to work in the fitness industry. My story will go back a little bit, but where I am today is that I'm a coach within a corporate setting. Which is a role that I was always destined to do because I was called a chatterbox as a kid. So I've always been a communicator. I've also launched my own women's circle off the back of the year of 2020 because I recognised connection and community was so incredibly important for women, and also privately coach women one-on-one. And my favourite part of coaching is seeing women really reconnect to themselves and rediscover why they what they desire and their own strengths and talents, because I really do feel we do lose sight of that, particularly as mothers.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for myself in my second marriage now, kind of out of each of those, going into the marriage, coming out of the first marriage, which was quite a disruptive time with a disruptive person, I completely changed my personality and forced myself into the role of, like the sensible, responsible, very constricted, very black and white, which is not who I was when I went in. When I went in, I was a dancer. And then went into corporate really young and a real go-getter. And by the time I came out, I was pretty broken and had also then put myself into this very tight, restricted box of being this responsible person, lost all the fun and the vulnerability and the joy. And then, having to refine that when I, fell in love with my current husband, which was one of those things that just whacked me in the face because I was trying so hard to avoid every man ever. I had a habit of not looking any men in the face, like not look them in the eyes so that they didn't think it was okay to ask me out.
Yeah.
And so, but my husband was one of those where it was just unavoidable. But again, then trying to rediscover myself in that new relationship and that new role, you know, and then again, when I came into online business, rediscover myself again as who I was in that, outside of just being a mom and a wife. And I know something that you're really passionate about is helping women work within those various roles that we all carry with us every day. Could you talk into that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do really have a tendency to align ourselves to the roles we play rather than kind of sticking with who we are or what we know of ourselves. And I think this is really common. You know, we come into this life where we're the daughter, we're the sister, then we become a partner, a lover, a girlfriend. And, you know, as women by nature, we're hardwired out by nature. We're here to nurture. And often in doing that, we kind of malleable ourselves or mold ourselves to the roles that we play. And then we become mothers. And, you know, these are very big roles. But I do really feel that we have a tendency to lose a bit of a sense of ourselves, particularly, you know, we have those teenage years where we're trying to be liked and part of the group. And, you know, so all of that is going on. And so this is a really common place that women find themselves in where, you know, possibly at the end of a really significant event, like the end of a marriage, like, you know, a couple of years into being a mother, you're at this place where you've kind of lost a bit of a sense of yourself. And, you know, often we've got this inner knowing that, you know, there's more that we're after, but we're not quite sure what that is, or we've lost a bit of sight of what our gifts and talents are. And there's two things that are happening there. One, because of the roles that we've just, you know, regularly playing in all the time. But also we are hardwired to focus on the negatives out of, you know, a very predominant place of keeping us safe. So our brain is actually, you know, built that way. So most of us are pretty highly critical of ourselves. So even when we're doing things that are really effortless or easy or, you know, great, we don't seem to see them as our talents and strengths. So I think that's really common. And for me, particularly at the end of my marriage, I realized that it wasn't that I had this moment of I don't know who I am, but I was like, oh, okay, I now have an opportunity to actually invest in myself because I've been investing in so much else previously. And so I had an opportunity, but also realized that I really needed to find out what was important to me and, you know, what lit me up.
I think that's so relatable, and especially what you said about the becoming a mom part, because that was me. My parents divorced when I was young, and I kind of took over that. I'm the eldest of four, so I very much took over that mom. Yeah, that mom, like I'm going to help take care of everybody. And I honestly have no regrets about that. Like I do truly feel like it is who I am. Like my friends always used to call me mom, like that was my nickname.
Mm-hmm.
and I loved it. I loved taking care of people. And then I became a mom, and I spent all day with this child, taking care of this child by myself. Not that my partner wasn't around, but he went back to work, like by yourself for hours a day, talking to this child that doesn't talk back. And I was like, this is it. I'm a mom. This is what I've always wanted. This is what everyone thought was my thing. And I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I thought this was going to be this great thing. And I was like, I hate this. And this is what I've been thinking for the last 15 years, that this was going to be like the best thing ever. And that's actually how Yvette and I ended up meeting. Because a couple months after, like postpartum, I was like looking for something to do.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to, I don't know, just not be by myself in this house. So, I mean, we do actually live quite relatively close together, but we just started building an online community and business together. And especially, so I guess where I'm going with this is right now, obviously, with everything with COVID and going back to the community and the connection, what are some things that you recommend specifically to new moms to find that?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
this time?
Such a good question. And I think this is particularly relevant for any woman at any stage of life. But I really love that you've highlighted that experience for a young mum, because I think this is really common, not just after, a big life-changing event, but just becoming a mum. You do, it's very bold to be able to say, hey, I actually don't want to just stay at home, and that's okay. But that can be hard to actually recognize and share. But the other transition, right, is if we do happily, or we are staying at home with our children until they're in school, then we've been out of the workforce possibly for a number of years. And we have really been associated within our role as mothers, and we've possibly lost a little bit of a sight on what are we good at, what type of career and job do I want, what's going to fit with me now in this version of me. So there's a couple of things that I think are very, very helpful. It's one, having a think about what do you do in your week, in your community, in your, maybe in the jobs that you've had in the past or your current role. What do you do that energizes you? What are the moments of the day in your current role or in your previous role that just lit you up and you were it was so effortless, but you just had a buzz? That's a key sign that you're working in one of your strengths. Then another tip is, what's the feedback that you get regularly? So this is a really interesting one, because it's likely that your friends, your work colleagues, your leaders highlight things to you or share with you things that you don't necessarily see as strengths or gifts, but that you do really well. And to you, it's just like second nature. So for me, talking and leading and running trainings is completely effortless for me. It completely energizes me. And, I can tend to think that that's really normal for everybody. So the feedback that you get from people will be an insight into what you do effortlessly, and what other people see as gifts and strengths that you may not necessarily see yourself, because again, we have a tendency to not see our own strengths. So the feedback that we get from other people is really key. The third thing is taking action, and this is coming back to my story, which I've shared, with my Her Tribe group just recently, actually, was, at the end of my marriage, I relocated back to my hometown in Brisbane. And so I had taken a leave of absence from my work. And I found myself with my boys, and I was looking for jobs. I thought, I want to be up here doing something. I don't just want to be parenting full time. I still want to be investing in myself. And I wasn't finding any work, and I thought of doing further study. And I was in James Street in Brisbane, and looking at some incredible shops and remembering I'd always had this desire for interior design. And a careers counsellor a number of years ago had shared with me that at that time I wasn't really tapping into my creativity. So I was faced with the idea of either further studying in my career in HR and people management, or do something completely different and study interior design. And I took the risk of studying interior design. And now I'm not a designer today, but that led me down a path of understanding what I loved about that industry, and what I didn't. And so I really truly believe if I hadn't taken that risk, I probably would still be questioning, was interior design the right role for me? But had I not done that, I wouldn't have recognized that actually there were parts about that industry that weren't aligned to my values and my strengths. And it reinforced to me what my strengths actually were. And I had feedback, which I've just shared, highlight that to me. And I also at that time did a strength assessment as part of my study, which is actually what I do in coaching. And, so they're tools that people can either access for free. There's VIA character strengths, which is one tool that you can do is basically an online test. Or you can do a Gallup Clifton Strengths test, which costs a little bit of an investment. It's a lot more detailed and thorough, but that will actually tell you what your strengths are. And 90% of the people that I work with are not surprised, although surprised, because they see these as their strengths. That the tests show that to them, but they kind of don't necessarily see them as strengths or value. And that's where working with someone and actually helping them understand how they're showing up in their day-to-day. They get to see the aha moment of realizing actually the talent is within them, and there's so much diversity that they can do in terms of applying those in different settings. So that's my tips.
Oh, sorry, Jessica.
I was just going to say, I really love that. And you brought me back to high school when we were all in a careers class and we were supposed to be figuring out what we were going to do, because you have to pick the courses the next year to do that. And I did one of those tests because I was like, I have no idea. I want to be a gym teacher. I think I want to run I want to be like the CEO of a huge basketball company. Like I was like all over the place. And I remember getting the test back, and the test was all over the place. But it at the same time wasn't surprising. It was still all the things that I knew I was good at, but they were so broad, and I was like, this isn't helpful. So like, do I need to take calculus next year? Like, do I not need to take calculus next year? But I remember in the moment just being like, this is so frustrating. Like, just tell me what career I'm supposed to take. But thinking back on it, they all made sense, and they all definitely have put me into what I'm doing now, which is I don't know how to explain our business of it. Like it's a bit of everything. Like we have coaching, and health has always been a big thing for me, but I need to go back. I need to find that test and see what else it said, because that's exactly what you just said. Like, it's surprising and it's not surprising at the same time.
Yeah. And you have highlighted something. So when I had seen a careers counselor a number of years earlier, when I was still within my marriage, that I wanted exactly what you just said. I wanted her to tell me the job that was for me. But, these things are not designed to, if we're told that we should be something, it's highly likely we're going to reject it anyway, right? So it is a bit of an exploration, which is why I give those 5 sort of strategies. It does start with really you as yourself thinking about what truly energizes you. And I've got a friend that is incredibly good at organizing, so much so that she's created a complete business out of it. Now, organizing a pantry and home, could be the worst nightmare to someone else. But for her, that's effortless. The process of going and doing that and tidying a space and organizing and investing that time in that. So it really is this exploration of what lights you up, what energizes you, what is effortless for you. And from that place, you really can discover your passion and, what you can turn into a career or a side gig. And if you're getting to do what you love each and every day, it's a day that is effortless. So there's so much value in this, and particularly for us as women, I think this is incredibly important.
Yeah, I think for a lot of women, very often too, I was one of these, that what I thought I wanted to do was not what I ended up doing. So my whole life, from when I was 4 years old, I was going to be a dance teacher. Mm-hmm. That was it. I didn't need to worry about calculus, Jess, because I was going to be a dance teacher. That was what I was going to be. And so I left school. I was still 17 when I took over the dance studio from my previous teacher. And I was 18 when I realized I didn't want to be a dance teacher. I just wanted to be a dancer, because being a dance teacher and a dancer is a very different thing. And so suddenly I was like, what now?
Mm.
What do I do now? And I see that in my own kids, where I have an 11-year-old who's getting stressed out about high school because she's already decided she wants to be a psychiatrist. And now she's already worrying about her grades at 11. It's already put that there. And it feels very similar to me, where we got to the point where we were like, what am I going to do now? And so I kind of fell into a call center job. Someone was like, oh, you can work in this call center. And I also studied interior design at the same time. I was like somewhere between, that's still my creative side, and realized that management was one of those things that just came really easy to me. So by the time I was very young, I was in a substantially higher managerial position than I would ever thought of, with people a lot younger than me kind of working under me. And then I immigrated and then had to work with my parents, here in Australia, in an office environment. Like, so everything is just swapping. And I think one of the things that we say often is, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Exactly.
And so I found a lot of women now at my age, so I'm in my late 40s, have so much fear around just making a decision that puts them out of their comfort zone. And so much self-doubt that they don't know that they're capable of much of anything. It's like they've cross-questioned themselves. And what you said earlier about not being sure what they are good at, and being so super critical of themselves. So what do you say generally to those women, just to help them step out of that fear space and into wanting to be more adventurous, and step out of their comfort zone?
Yeah. So I guess leading by example for a start. And I truly believe that there is this level, whenever we're feeling that sense of resistance, that sense of fear, it's taking action. And it doesn't have to be massive, significant action, but it's definitely taking a step. So sometimes when I'm working with a client, it's, we might need to actually explore what is under the resistance. A lot of the time we're talking about, I don't have enough time, how will I do this around my family? Is it possible? I couldn't study at this age, or, there's a whole lot of things that will come up as potentially reasons why we are stopping ourselves. And it is truly fear that's we could attach to all of those. So even just having the conversation and the awareness of, hey, all that is fear. And fundamentally there's fear of dying, and then there's fear of failure. Like, just everything else is irrelevant. Like, we're only real one fear as a human being. Like, one true fear is the fear of death, and even that we know is going to happen. So we know that everything else is not true fears. And so that's how I speak with with clients and with women in my women's circles. So what's the opposite of not giving it a go? It's staying the same. And so I would invite someone to really explore what's driving the idea of making a change. And let's say it's around potentially exploring a new career. There are so many ways that we can do these days. You can start by just trying on one course, for one trimester, one semester. It can be incredibly a small commitment to just try and dip your toe into what it would be like to explore a new field of study. You can approach businesses to do work experience. I know that sounds like something we'd only do in our teens, but the reality is most people are having 10 to 15 different careers in their life. I don't know what you remember being told at school. I think when I was at school, we were told we'd have about 5 to 10. I do think that we're being told now it's more realistic that it's 10 to 15 different jobs, maybe not careers. So it's also then bringing to the attention of are there other people in your world that you can see that have done this and actually have had some success or tried it on? Because I think sometimes it's just having other models, other people in our life that we can go, well, hey, they gave it a go. So baby steps, trying it on in the way of speaking to someone that's already doing that. And really it's about taking action, because if, as you said, if you hadn't taken on the dance school at 17, you wouldn't have known that actually being a dance teacher isn't quite for you. If I hadn't started studying interior design, I probably would still be questioning if that was the role or that was the career I should be pursuing. But in actual fact, it led me exactly to where I am today, because I learned, or I remembered through that study, actually what I was really good at was working with the client, and that's what I loved. I loved the industry, but I loved working with the client. I loved unpacking the brief. I loved the idea and the creativity around it. I was incredibly good in group work, and I could lead teams because that's my skills, that's my strengths. And so I took that and took those skills and strengths and brought them into other areas. So action is key, 100%.
That's the hardest part, though, for most people, the action. Because like you said, I know there's obviously a fear of death, but it's the fear of failure, fear of being judged is a big one for people.
Yeah.
Sorry, one second.
It's okay.
She's upset because I won't let her talk.
Oh.
What was I just about to ask?
Yeah.
Kinsley, hey, I'm almost finished, okay? Thank you. What was I just about to say about the skills?
The fear of failure.
Yeah. The fear of failure. What do you say for people when so skills, I feel like, are so transferable. And this is where I got caught before. I got caught in hospitality. It put me through university. And then I had this all I know is hospitality. All I can do is hospitality. And I worked up the ranks and I became a manager. And, someone was like, oh, you'd be a great general manager. And it was like, do I want to own my own place? And then I was like, oh, I think I want to leave hospitality. But what am I going to do with these skills? These skills aren't transferable anywhere else, but they totally are. So how do you help people or can you even help people identify skills that they have in one industry or one job or one career and have that transferable to something that they're really passionate about and lights them up about it?
Yeah, such a great question. So, when I talk about strengths and discovering someone's strengths, we really differentiate between strengths, which can be strengths or your natural talents, to skills. So skills are what we actually learn and develop over time. So you can learn the skill of being a great customer service person and having great communication, but that's actually different to the strength of communication. So it actually comes back to the same question that I was the starting point around what energizes you. So if Jess, if we were talking and you were saying, I've had this career in hospitality and this is the things that I'm really good at, I'd actually not necessarily be wanting to hone in on the skills, but hone in on what about that role. What are the times in those roles that have been most energizing for you? Tell me about a particular moment or a particular experience that you've had within that job that you just remember being so energized or so in flow. That was the best day or the best moment in that job. And we'd actually explore what was going on there, because that will be an insight into your strengths and your talents, and just what you're naturally effortlessly good at. And it's through exploring that would then identify again what your core natural talent and strengths are, what you do effortlessly, and that's what you can translate into any setting.
That'll be so good for so many people to do, especially if they're afraid to make that career change because they're later in life, but even so many young people. Like my sister is 6 years younger than me, and she's struggling to find what she wants to do. And I'm like, you're still so young. Like, just do that. Do whatever is the first thing that comes to your mind. Just try it out. It doesn't matter. You don't have kids yet. You're like, just do it all. Do it all.
Yes.
She's like so nervous about doing anything because she's so nervous about doing anything because she doesn't want to make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
And look, that's classic, right? My boys aren't quite at high school yet, but this pressure on us to get it right in high school very much comes back to that environment. So I think as parents, or if you listening as not a parent, but you've got young people in your life that are, in high school or approaching university, I have a very different conversation with my children and, my young people in my world than I was having with myself and with my friends when I was in high school. And it's very much about what lights you up. What do you do, effortlessly, when you're having conversations about things at school, what do you just get really excited about? And that's the threads that I try and get my boys to follow. And, I've got a younger sister who's actually in university, and, I'm constantly having conversations with her about that as well. And just a reminder that, we don't have to get it right from the start. I mean, we're 3 women here that have had multiple evolutions in our careers, and, it's not too late to make a change. It's never too late to make a change.
Yeah, I agree. I know with my eldest, she's a paramedic student, and she was walking around with a, first aid book from when she was tiny. It was the only thing we could get her to read. It was this old first aid book of my mom's that was from South Africa and told you, first aid stuff, but also what to do if you were cornered by a baboon. And so she loved this thing, carried it everywhere, but she still left school and tried nursing because that's where a lot of her friends were going. They were going to do nursing. And she did 1 semester of nursing and absolutely tanked it and hated every minute of it and dropped out. We were like, stop now, please. Like, don't. She was like, I feel like I'm letting everybody down if I stop now. And we were like, please, before you carry on, if this is not what you want to do, just stop now. You've tried that. She took a semester off. Bizarrely, we were gifted Tony Robbins tickets. And in the middle of a Tony Robbins conference on the Saturday, she picked up her phone and signed up for paramedics in the middle of the conference, and loves it and does really well at it and has just found that thing. And I think half of finding the right thing for you to do is failing a little bit in some of the wrong things and feeling that out a little bit. Otherwise, you're right. You never know unless you try that it's not your thing, and you're left wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's definitely things that I've tried on that, failing, it's a great term, but it's learning, right? When we get things wrong, we learn.
Failing forward.
Failing forward. That's exactly the phrase I was looking for. The thing, just bringing it back to strengths, because your strengths are with you from the start. So what I love getting this realization when I speak with people is when we actually identify what your strengths are. And you can do this if you just think about, again, those key things that energize you, and then you think back over the careers that you've had. I promise you they're going to pop up. There'll be like this thread of where you've done or you've been in sharing that strength, and it could be within not just the careers or roles that you've had, but just in what you do with your friends. Maybe in your friends group, you're the one that takes care of all the planning, and you create spreadsheets for the holidays. And, I've got friends like this. It's effortless for them. But I've worked out with that particular friend I'm talking about, she's an incredibly great strategic thinker, and that is a strength. And you can apply that in so many different settings. And she does that within her workplace, and it's what, if we can trace back her career path and what she does really well in her community groups that she's a part of. She's a part of her daughter's basketball committee and club, and she helps out in so many different ways, and that strength just keeps popping up, this strategic thinking strength and strategist, and she loves it. Those things, helping out in all those different ways, really provides a lot of value to her life. So yeah, your strengths, there'll be a thread through your lifetime, and it's just, again, taking those opportunities to actually reflect and go about discovering it. And you can do that in the ways that I've suggested, or you can look into some kind of strength test and coaching. There's different ways to approach it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's just coming back to you. Like, it's really interesting because you were speaking about your hospitality, but I think you always, your passion has always been kind of health and nutrition, and you've gone, you've studied nutrition, and then you've almost brought that love of nutrition and health into the various things that you've done in your hospitality. And now, even though you're still doing a bit of that, the things you do for fun every day, like the stuff you love doing, is speaking to women, about health and nutrition and moving their bodies. It just comes up for you. It's just an easy conversation.
Yeah, it is. And I was always the waitress that people would come running to, being like, I have this person who has who's vegetarian, or who's allergic to this, like, what can they have? And I just knew the menu back to front, because like food is just like such a big thing for me. Like, and that if you look back at all of my hospitality things, I've made gluten-free menus. I've done like, wine pairings, like, yeah. So food, even though like hospitality isn't the career I want to be in, food and nutrition and health, and specifically women's health, is so obviously there in everything I've ever done. Yeah.
In that thread. Amazing.
Yeah,
well, we've had some serious realizations tonight. Mira, thank you so much for joining us. If our listeners want to connect with you, how do they best find you?
Yeah, so thank you so much. It's a topic that I just love talking about, and hearing your own personal stories are just perfect. So you can connect with me via social media, Instagram, Facebook, and my website is miraclaudia.com. Instagram, mira.claudia.au is probably the easiest place to find me.
Awesome. We'll make sure that we put that in the show notes too for everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us today on the Transformation Project. Thank you for listening in to this episode of the Transformation Project. The Transformation Project is not just a podcast. We're also a community. We're a collective of like-minded people all around the world seeking to live their best life and raise each other up. We're looking to support you, set goals, get healthier, connect with yourself and others at a deeper level, and better understand yourself and the world around you. We're always looking to link arms with like-minded people wanting to create more out of life. You can connect with us via our website, which is www.thetransformationproject.net.au. Email us at support@thetransformationproject.net.au, or simply listen in to one of our podcast episodes, which can be found on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can even watch some of our episodes on our YouTube channel, simply called The Transformation Project. Please like and subscribe to make sure you hear all the incredible shows and guests we have lined up. If you have any feedback or any comment, we would love to hear those, as well as any ideas or guests that you think we should be interviewing in future. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Transformation Project.